What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Asian MMA podcast where we talk about anything and everything going on in the world of Asian MMA. I'm your host, Dana Blouin, and I'm joined by my friend from Kumite Radio, John Coe. This episode is brought to you by a year's worth of regrets because this is our 2019 Asian MMA year in review. John, thank you so much for joining me today. I know it's not as early in Korea as it is in Bangkok, but I still appreciate you putting in the time, man.
No worries, man. No worries. It's only 2 hour difference, so it's still
Just
early.
2 hour
I just
difference.
woke up. I might not look like it, but I just woke up though.
I've been up for about an hour, so not so bad.
Yeah.
So we've got
Now,
a whole
yeah.
list of stuff to go through today, man. And for anyone who doesn't know Kumite TV or John's work, John is probably one of the best interviewers in the game. So I would highly recommend you check him out. Check out what he's doing in the world of Asian MMA or MMA in general. He doesn't just limit it to Asian MMA, but he does some fantastic interviews. And if you check out his channel, definitely subscribe because it's 100% worth it. I steal a lot of info from his interviews, so definitely worth checking out.
I appreciate the kind words, man, but I'm just like a little guy in a big pond. That's all it is.
A big guy in a little pond he's over there in Korea making it happen. So I want to get
Trying to.
right on to the show. We've got a lot to cover, John. And first things first is local promotions. I mean, here in Asia, we've got a fair amount of local promotions, and for me, the biggest local promotion story of the year was the return of FMD, and FMD had an amazing year with a couple of events, a couple championships went down. We saw Glenn Sparv take home a sword from FMD, and Javier Truello take home a sword. So, I mean, really good stuff.
Yeah, it definitely a a resurgence in many ways for FMD. They were gone for a long time, and I think a lot of people believe that it was dead. Do you think so?
Yeah, I thought so for sure. I thought FMD had its toe tag on 100%, and they came back strong with great cards. Fantastic heavyweight card, fantastic heavyweight fight 2 shows ago. But I mean, the main event at the last one with Javier and a good card altogether. You were there live for that one. We met up beforehand.
Yeah. Back to back Von Flu chokes in the
Yeah,
main and
on Epstein
co-main
chokes, they're
event.
calling them now.
You couldn't even script it that way. It's like almost unbelievable what actually happened at that event. But the going back to that heavyweight fight, I thought the heavyweight fight, was the fight of the year for the promotion because
Yeah,
the grounded opponents that changes or grounded knees to an opponent changes the game, and I don't
changes the
understand
soccer game.
why. Yeah, I don't understand like why other promotions don't at least put that into the rule set, like just knees to a grounded opponent. I understand the soccer kicks, but the knees to a ground opponent, it makes it so much better, so much more exciting, and you could finish from so many different angles on the ground. And that heavyweight bout, I forgot it was Zangief
It,
from
Stan
Street
Geef,
Fighter.
Stan
Okay,
Geef. It looks
Zangief
like
from Street
Stan Geef from
Fighter,
Street Fighter,
and Yokozuna
yeah,
from
and
Street
Yoko's
Fighter.
Ohanda.
Yeah, Ohanda, right?
It's
Ihanda,
basically a Street
Ihanda.
Fighter fight in real life.
Yeah, definitely, and it was fun, man. But yeah, they had some new champions crowned,
Yeah.
swords being handed out, and it was fun, man. It's always fun to go there live, and I always tell everybody that FMD, if you go live, that's the only way to experience it.
It's
Watching
a
it on
completely
YouTube
different
or
experience.
Facebook, yeah, it's fun. The fights are fun, but when you go there and you feel and when you're right next to the cage and you could touch the cage,
You can touch the
and
cage.
yeah, you could
Now,
touch the
I've
cage
rep
and like yell
fights
at
at Full
people,
Metal Dojo, and I've had to, like, slap away fans' hands as they reach through the cage to touch the fighters.
and you could hear the fans yelling at the referees. It's so funny. Like,
Yeah,
and they're fighters too. They're not like just like fans. There's fighters there next to the cage
yeah,
yelling crazy things to the referee and to the
crazy.
other fighters. It's
I've been
entertaining,
at
man, and
fights I've reffed fights where, like, fans in the crowd who are fighters from the same gym as one of the fighters in the fight, he'll be like talking to the guy who's getting beat up. He's like, "Just give up, man. Just give up. Like you don't want this anymore. You're done. You're done. Just give it up." And
Yeah.
but I mean, literally, they're inches away. Like it's one of the most insane experiences as an MMA fan. You have to be a fan of Full Metal Dojo. And like I said, the rule set, you talked about the knees to the head. They've got soccer kicks, 12 to 6 elbows. There's very little
Mm.
not allowed in Full Metal Dojo. And that is by design. It really has this crazy underworld, street fight feel. And you do feel like you're coming out of an action movie when you're there. It is that insane.
Yeah, I'm hoping that somebody jumps on board, somebody with some funds, some
Yeah,
capital or
it'd be
something,
nice.
and explode this concept that they have. I know that in many ways they don't want to do that, but I feel like they should just spread their wings and give it to everybody and just travel the world with it. Just like a tour, like a 1980s rock band, just go around and just take Full Metal Dojo on a
Yeah, like
world tour. I
like
think
a
that'll be
hairband
fun for
tour.
next year. Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I mean, but there's very few places where they could go and pull off that rule set and that type of show. That's the real kind of kicker to it. One of the things that I love about it is that kind of grittiness, that rule set, and it would be imagine like going to Phnom Penh and seeing
Mhm.
Full Metal Dojo in like some gritty club in Phnom Penh or in Jakarta. It would obviously never happen in Singapore or Korea, but there are
I
places you
don't
could.
know.
Manila, it could happen.
Yeah,
You
I
think it
think
could
there's a
happen in
lot of
Korea?
places where there's no commission, and
Hmm.
there's a lot of places don't have commissions. It's possible. Why
Yeah,
not?
very true. And we'll talk about no commissions in a little bit for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm.
Another one that came back this year, not quite as a triumphant return, but was TFC,
Yeah,
and that is
TFC.
Will Chope's promotion down in southern Thailand. Kind of a great proving ground for some of like the really local guys.
Yeah, especially with Thailand only having 2 fight promotions
Yeah,
and uh
there's a
and
couple
then
smaller ones outside of that, but nothing that I would consider safe. I mean, the one nice thing about Full Metal Dojo is John, as a former fighter himself, really does go the extra mile for the fighters and does blood checks and medical
Mhm.
checks and all that stuff to make sure people are safe. Where I've unfortunately worked some events in Thailand where there were no blood tests for fighters, and you see guys coming into fights who have like visible cuts already. So there are some others, but again, none I would consider professional level. TFC and FMD are really the two.
Yeah, especially yeah, Will knows what he's doing. He's
Yeah,
fought all over the
Will's
world.
legit.
He knows what's in and what's out, and what needs to be done to protect the fighters. He's
Yeah,
fought everywhere. He's fought every type of combat sport.
every type of
Yeah,
combat.
shout out to Will Chope, man. Will Chope is doing his thing.
Yeah, friend of the show,
He
Will
just
Choke,
opened
man.
a
What's up?
yeah, I think he just opened a store in Phuket, Fight Bros. I think he's, expanding his
Nice.
portfolio, so to say. And that's good to
Busiest
see,
man
man,
in
because
Asian MMA.
Will's doing his thing, man. Always got love for Will. Yeah, he's a hard you can't, hard work, man. That's
Hard work.
that's what Will is about. Hard work and taking advantage of
He's really
opportunities.
about that grind. I mean, he's
Yeah,
all about it.
respect.
Yeah, and I mean,
Respect to him.
it's hard to think of like a weekend where he doesn't have a fight.
That's true,
Like
and he's fighting everywhere. It's not like he's just
everywhere.
fighting, like, in Thailand. He's fighting in Japan and China
Europe.
and Germany
Yeah,
and he'll go to Russia and Siberia. It doesn't matter. He
doesn't
you
matter.
got that check. He'll go
Yeah,
and beat up one of your guys.
he's like the blue collar hero, working class hero of MMA, man. He really is. Hardest working guy in Asian MMA. All about he's putting on promotions. He's fighting every weekend. I don't. And he's a family man. I don't know how he has time.
And I don't even think he's 30 yet.
I don't think he is.
Which
Crazy.
is crazy.
And he's a UFC vet.
Yeah. I think that's the kicker. He has that title and it helps him
Yeah.
get a lot of fights.
So how about in Korea? Any local promotions out in Korea that really tickle your fancy?
There's a promotion. They had two shows last year. Zeus FC. They're
Okay.
run by two brothers, and one of the brothers used to fight in Japan, and the other brother is has been a coach for a long, long time. And one thing good about them is like they have a set uh structure. You know,
Mm,
like the main eventers, they get paid this much. The co-main event gets paid this much. The undercards get paid this much, and they always pay their fighters. And and you never get more, and you never get less.
mm.
It's like you know what you're getting into,
So you know.
and yeah, you know, it's not like there's no like funky contract negotiations, nothing like that. They're like, hey, you want to fight?
Mm.
This is what we got, and
And that's an important thing in
there's
MMA because a lot of
yeah, and
promoters.
there's no discrimination either. You know, like a lot of promotions will discriminate against some other, you know, certain fighters for, you know,
Yeah,
for what affiliations they have, right?
yeah,
And these guys don't care about that. They're just about all about opportunities and putting together the best fights locally in the region as possible and pushing these guys up and sending them to the bigger promotions, you know, like One Championship or the UFC or Bellator or whatever. And
Brazil.
I think they're doing big things. And then a big sponsor recently just hopped on with them for the next year. So they're gonna
Nice.
put on bigger shows and maybe even raise the purse for the fighters. Because if you get investment, you know, that's what you can do is give more money to the fighters. And these guys are that's what they're doing. And I met with them and I talked with them and they kind of laid out the plan that they have. It sounds good, man. And it's not just because they're talking, they're doing it. They're doing what they say. And that proves a lot to me, you know, when I look at
Actions
them.
speak louder than words, man.
Mhm. Definitely.
Absolutely. One more I want to mention. Actually, two more real quick before we go on to the next topic is Ultimate Beatdown from Malaysia. Great proving ground for a lot of people coming out of the amateur ranks. Really gritty promotion. They hold it like it's like on the roof of a mall in Johor Bahru. And one of the best promotions. And actually, Shadow Cat, who is in fighting in one championship now, she came out of that promotion, and that in Mima. And unfortunately, no Mima this year, but or anymore. But she came out of that kind of ranks. But that UB was really where she cut her teeth, and we see a lot of Malaysian fighters really get some ground in UB. So I really enjoyed that promotion. I don't know if you've ever seen them, John.
No, I've heard of them. I've seen a couple fights, but I don't really follow them too closely. But I understand that a few of the few fighters have come out of that. And how many do they have shows constantly, or
They put
is
them
it
on sporadic. I think they have
sporadic?
like 3 or 4 a year.
Okay, okay.
And then there's UGB MMA, which I have to talk about out of
Philippines?
Philippines, which is
Okay.
one of my favorite things. It's like they've got the full contact stick fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like MMA with the Filipino stick fighting style, and they just basically wear MMA shorts, MMA gloves, and a face mask, and they go out there and they whoop each other with these sticks. But they had a huge year expansion wise, and it looks like they're gonna do some big things next year, which I'm super excited about.
That's man, the internet is I just blame it on the internet. Like internet will expose everybody to all the wildness of the world and it's beautiful that this is getting some exposure. It's like
Yeah,
slap fighting, you know, like the slap
yeah,
contest
the
thing.
Russian
It's like
flatbot.
who would yeah, people there's like crowds of like thousands of people watching that live. It's
Yeah,
crazy and if that could get thousands of people watching live, I don't see why this can't get
yeah, and I
hundreds of
mean,
thousands of people.
and it's beautiful. I mean, the guys who are very high level who come out doing this, it's not like, some Sunday Joe came out and he's just smacking some other guy with a stick. These guys have really good technique. They're blocking, parrying. I mean, it's legit.
Mhm.
But no shirt, just taking strikes with sticks. I mean, it
Yeah, I
makes
don't
me
want to do
hurt just
that.
watching it.
Yeah, that that sounds pretty dangerous.
Good
Where's
stuff,
that commission? Where's that
no
commission?
commissions. Next, I want to move on to a quick story. It was IMAF this year, which is the governing body for Asian MMA, pretty much globally. They're the biggest one. They're really the only one who matters, no matter what else is out there and people are throwing in the media or what other promotions are saying. IMAF is really the only main body for amateur MMA. at that level, that's really pushing it to an Olympic level, and they're the ones who have spent the time, gone through the steps, laid the groundwork. Their Asian Open was supposed to be in China this year, and it fell apart. Internal issues in China, and last minute ended up moving to Thailand. And so they had like something like 20 days to set this up in Thailand. They had it down in Nana over at the Ambassador Hotel. Uh, Actually turned out to be a really good event. And one of the things that we saw from Southeast Asia was that Malaysia had a fantastic showing. They've actually had some really good, some really strong um, participants over the years. I mean, of course, they've developed their entire amateur circuit with Mima for years and years in Malaysia, but they had a really strong showing, and then they went on to do pretty well in Bahrain at the World Championships. Real quick, we got our boy Drake Riggs down in the comments saying medieval MMA is where it's at.
It is, man. I think M1 Global's doing that too, right? Or
Yeah,
M1 Global is
we
doing
got the
medieval
sword.
MMA. Yeah, with the swords and the shields and yeah, they're bringing Game of Thrones and mixed martial arts together.
Yeah, I'm not arguing about that. I'm not complaining. I can't hate it.
But I'm gonna be real with you. Like, it's cool that it's out there, but I'm not watching that shit, man. Come
I'm
on, man.
watching.
Like, I'm watching. I want to see hand to hand combat. I want to see no weapons. I want to see what you can do with your body. Like, how can you destroy the next person? Like, I understand the allure of medieval MMA and weapons and all that stuff, but I'm more of a I don't know. Could you am I right if I say I'm more of a purist? Is that right? I don't
Well,
know.
I mean, I guess more for me, the UGB is much closer to that because you could pick up anything and have it be a stick.
Mhm.
Not too many dudes I know walking around with a long sword,
Yeah.
and swinging that around. But anything could become a stick.
Yeah,
So why not?
definitely. Anything could become a stick.
Yeah,
Anything. Yeah.
anything, right? So moving on from IMAF, I mean, unless you have some comments on IMAF, did you follow it at all, the amateur scene?
No, I just know that Mohammed Makayev, that dude is like the next biggest star.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think
for sure.
he won everything in IMF the last couple years, and he's
He's a
still
beast.
they see that's a guy that's a perfect example of why you should not just jump into the pro ranks unless you really have to. Is he's the perfect example. He's went through the amateur ranks and picked up like a myriad of titles everywhere
Yeah,
and in IMF, and he's getting famous off that. You know what I mean? Like, people are noticing him, and he also trains down at Tiger Muay Thai, and he's been down there for a long time. And think about him as an amateur training with all the pros down there and competing with them, and then going to the amateur fights and just destroying guys all the time. And yeah, going back to what I said, is he's a perfect example why you should try to build yourself through the amateur ranks first if you can, if you're able to, and then go pro later. I'm very excited to see how he does as a professional and where he goes to fight as a professional. I know he wants to be a UFC champion, but I want to see what promotion picks him up to kind of develop him into pushing him into the UFC. Or does he get a developmental deal from the UFC Contender Series? You never know what can happen, because Matt Mitrione, remember, he was
yeah,
on the Ultimate Fighter and he had no fights, no professional fights, and he
yeah.
went into the UFC with no professional fights. So who knows what can happen with him?
Very possible. I mean, I agree. I think the amateur circuit is incredibly important, especially for these guys who want to develop and really make a career out of it. The amateur circuit gives them the chance to refine those skills, get a lot of those jitters out of the way. When I fought MMA in the early 2000s in the East Coast, there was no amateur circuit. My first fight was as a pro against a guy who I'd seen fight multiple times. So it's difficult if there's no amateur league to develop these guys' skill set, and I really think they benefit a great deal from it. And I think IMAF is doing a fantastic job with promoting amateur athletes, setting amateur apart from pro with a rule set and look and feel and all of that. They're doing a fantastic job.
Are they continuing with the Asian championships in Thailand, or is that just like a one-time thing?
It's supposed to change every year. Like, it was supposed
Uh,
I think they've tried to kick it off in China a few times, and it just never took. Like, China's always
yeah,
had problems with it. I was actually
yeah,
at a
words.
show I was actually at a show in, Kunming, China, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, maybe, that it was actually, like, it was funny because it was, like, a straight rip off of one championship, like, a lot of the sayings and slogans they had everywhere, and, um and it was funny because it was, like, just straight up a rip off of one, but it was, like, a mix of amateur and pro fights, and, Gareth Brown from IMAF was actually there to try to make headway with the local governments, the local authorities for amateur MMA. And it was like I've run into Kareth in like 3 or 4 countries now. Like, everywhere he's like, if I'm at a show, he'll show up and be like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just here talking to officials and sports authorities and ministries," and, so they're really putting in the work, and they worked hard on China, but it just keeps not happening.
Hey, you just gotta wait, see what
Yeah,
happens. China is just it's uncharted territory,
it's a
and
huge
MMA
market.
is gonna blow. We're gonna talk about it probably later, but about
Yeah,
Chinese MMA. But man, I see
it's
so
a
much that could happen in that
huge
country with mixed
potential.
martial arts. Yeah, massive
Billion-plus
money.
people.
Yeah,
That's why I'm glad Helen Yee's doing, like, Chinese interviews now, Mandarin interviews,
yeah. She'll be the Arrow Hawani of China.
right? Easily,
Yeah,
easily.
in Chinese.
In
Yeah.
Chinese, yeah. People won't know who Ariel is or Luke Thomas is, that be like, "Oh, Helen Yee, no, she's the one, number 1,
Yeah.
for
Well,
sure."
she'll be the Helen Yi of China. We
Yeah,
can't
right?
say like
Ariel
she's gonna
Helwani will
be
be
the
the Helen Yee of,
yeah.
America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Arrow
did you
that
see
is
her
the
interview
Helen Yi
with,
of America.
yeah, her interview with, Wei Li from when
Yeah.
after she won the championship, like, it was the
Yeah.
first time you saw her personality come through as a fighter, and, not have to worry about translation and going back and forth. It was really interesting to see the dynamic that interview took compared to all others. So huge, huge potential there.
Definitely, man.
So next up, I want to talk about gyms in Asia. I know you've got a couple in Korea, but for me, the biggest story of the year is really the rise of Tiger Muay Thai. And I feel like they've finally gotten like some of that real international coverage that they've never gotten before, or not that they did. They've deserved it for years, but people are really starting finally to notice outside Asia. And I think that, the work they've done, the work that they put in over the past like 5 years to really create a program that grows fighters, that builds world class fighters, is coming to fruition. And George Hickman, I know you guys are boys, but and he's clearly done some amazing things as the head coach down there. The owners have obviously put a lot of faith in the team, and it's starting to show this year for sure. And I mean, they're on the world stage, they're in every major promotion, and they're just producing the best fighters coming out of Asia, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, it's phenomenal, man. I've known a lot of those guys for the past couple of years.
Mm,
Even guys that are not on the world stage, that the guys that are still grinding, we all know Peter Yan. We all
yeah,
know I think Valentina's down there right now. She's been there for a long time, right? Even
yeah,
before anybody knew who Tiger Muay Thai was. She's down there right now training, I think, for her upcoming fight. She started her camp down there right now.
mm,
Who else is there? Like Nasty Yukins down
yeah.
there. There's a long list of famous people, right? Famous fighters. You get
To me,
Roundtree,
the Roundtree, yeah,
Cavillo, yeah,
yeah,
Cavillo. Like, but I want to give shine to the guys that are like down there that are training with them, and that are still putting in the work, and they'll be
yeah,
the next stars. It's like you got like Trent Girdham. He's a young kid out of Australia. He fights all the time. And he's still on the grind. I think he's only like 21. I remember meeting him when he was 18. Uh,
mm,
and you got like Fabricio Andrade.
yep,
He's a kickboxer who's probably going to transition over to MMA. He's even younger than Trent. You got veterans like Emilio Urrutia. One veteran. One featherweight. A long list. Even the females, the
yeah,
female fighters down there. You got like man, and whenever I try to list names, I always forget half the
You know
people
who's
that I
the
want to talk
biggest,
about.
like, example to me of, like, how great Tiger is as a gym and as a coaching staff is, now I just forgot her name, the girl from Australia who's in, OWS,
Win.
Win. So,
Yeah.
I saw her fight in Primal FC, and I believe she was with AKA at the time, AKA
Mhm.
Thailand, and she just got murked, and it was like a special rules fight that was clearly set up for her to get an easy win against a Muay Thai fighter, and it was supposed to be like, Muay Thai with takedowns, and she just got destroyed in like the worst possible way, and like she did not look good in that fight, and she could barely walk afterwards. I remember seeing her walking through the parking lot of the beach club that the event was at, and she was limping. Her legs were all swollen up. She makes the move to Tiger at some point in between then and whenever, and she looks like, I mean, I know she lost her last fight, but as far as like the way she's looked in OWS has been amazing. Like she looks like a completely different fighter than she was at Primal.
Mm.
And she's doing things that I never expected to see her fight again after that. I mean, it was that bad. And then she goes to Tiger, and whatever the secret sauce that they're working with there at Tiger just completely unlocked her potential. And I've seen that with a few fighters that go there from other gyms and just move on to that next level. They level up. And to me, I mean, that's one of the most amazing things coming out of Asia. And I'm so glad that people on an international stage are talking about Tiger now.
Yeah, they got a bunch of prospects. There's Casey O'Neill, another girl from Australia. She was the champion for Eternal. I'm pretty sure she's gonna fight for that title again. She's never lost. She just missed weight her last fight, but still won the fight. She
Nice.
just got down there. Um, and the coaching staff, man, like they got some great coaches. It's not just
Yeah.
the MMA coaches. You gotta look at like the boxing coaches. They have two solid boxing coaches. If you watched or followed Peter Yan, his last camp, he
Yeah.
had a guy from, I think his name is Johnny. Johnny Boxing, I think. I don't know his full name. I don't remember off the top of my head, but Johnny Boxing, he's a guy that's been, sharpening the boxing of Peter Yan. And you know what Peter Yan is known for? He's known
Yeah.
for his boxing, right? And his forward pressure
And
and his scrambles. And now his kicks for some reason. He decapitated Uriah Faber with a head
yeah.
kick. That was a weird head kick too. It wasn't even
Yeah.
like a full head kick. But yeah, like there's a whole coaching staff down there. You got Frank Hitman too,
Yeah.
George's brother. He's all over
Running
the
wrestling,
place,
right?
Yeah, he's running the wrestling, but he's also like Volkanovski's main guy for wrestling that he goes and brings in for camp. I think that also helps a lot for Tiger Muay Thai is
And
the
they got
coaches
Alex
kind
down
of
there doing BJJ, right?
yeah, Alex Shield.
Super guy.
Um, yeah, there's so many guys down there that it's you only see the certain big names on in the UFC or whatever,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of guys that come together. You
Even the
got
little
Woody with
kids.
strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
There's so many guys. It's hard to remember everybody, but
Mm.
it's a collaborative effort, and I'm
It's a
pretty sure
real
all those
legit
guys, if you
program.
talk to yeah, if you
Yeah.
talk to them, they'll tell you the same thing. And also they've made some good business moves, man. Like if you're a gym and a growing gym and a popular destination, you have to make great business decisions. You can't just be like, "Oh, we're a fighters gym." You got to kind of bring in the guys that are going to bring in the attention. And
Yeah.
that's what they've done. They've picked and selected the fighters and treated them well, and they bring more fighters. You
Yeah.
never know who that brings in, like word of mouth. And I think that has worked well for them. And now when you go to Tiger and see like the pro practices, it's like 60 people from
Mm.
like all over the world. Like what gym has, I don't think many gyms have that amount of people at one time from all over the world, like from Europe and other parts of Asia and North America, even Brazil. Yeah, man, they're doing big things, and they've just getting started, which is pretty insane to say.
Insane. Now in Korea, who do you have gym wise that's on your radar?
Well, the number one gym that I see uh is Team Stun Gun, which is just they just formed it recently. Who it's Stun Gun, Stun Gun, the
Yep.
UFC welterweight. He created his own gym, and he created his own team. And on the roster, he has like a couple. He has a UFC vet. You know, he has former champions, and he has prospects coming up. He has a good group, and he's developing them himself, basically, with one other coach, actually two other coaches, and he's doing it the like the American way. He's bringing them in. He's housing them. He's providing for them, and he's training them and trying to create the next superstar.
Yeah.
And I think because he has the funding and the money to do it, why not, man? And you're gonna see big things out of that team, I
Spending
believe.
his
I think
own
you'll
money, or
see.
does he got like a backer?
No, he has his own money. He also does he's also a celebrity TV personality. So he's always on TV doing like talk shows and variety shows and he makes
Just
probably
like you.
tons of cash off that. Huh?
Just like you.
Yeah, yeah, I wish. I
The
wish I was
Korean
doing that.
lumberjack, John Ko.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, man,
So
Team Stun Gun, I have to give them some props. Um yeah, everybody else knows the other gyms, you know, you got Korean Top Team, you
yeah.
got Team Mad.
Mm,
They're always doing the same thing. But I feel like those teams they need to kind of level up a little bit because Team Stun Gun's coming. And then there's one more other team called Team Extreme Combat. They have a few fighters fighting for one championship.
mhm.
Pretty Boy,
Yeah,
Juan Wanir. He's from
yeah.
Extreme Combat. Another guy, another bantamweight, Kim Jae-ung. He just debuted and knocked out. I forgot who he knocked
Kim
out, but
Jong Un.
he's vicious, huh?
Kim Jong Un.
Yeah, yeah. If you say it fast enough, that's what it sounds like. Uh, yeah, he's another legit prospect, a bantamweight. Those guys have sick power, both of them. They don't look like it, but they do. I've been watching those guys for a long time. But yeah, that's another team I think for one championship you need to look out for is Extreme Combat. But
Actually,
other than that, yeah, man, those are the main ones.
talking to fighters, one of my favorite fighters in Asian MMA comes out of Tiger, and I forgot to mention him, Top Noi.
Oh
One
yeah,
of the
yeah,
most exciting, interesting fighters to watch for sure.
yeah, yeah.
And of course, the other gym I want to mention in Thailand that I think is on the come up, and I hope we see big things from them next year is Team Quest Thailand up in Chiang Mai.
Mhm.
Javier comes out of there. My boy Greg McGonch, amateur fighter out of there. So and they have some great prospects that they're developing. So I hope we see that blossom into something very interesting. Dylan Fussell, the head coach up there, is brilliant guy, absolute beast in himself. So it'll be fun to see them grow in 2020.
Yeah, talk about positive energy, man. That Dylan, I've spoke to him like online a few times and I
Yeah,
met him just recently in person and he's one of the nicest guys you ever meet. But he's
for sure.
he's a killer.
He
Like that's like everybody though. There's so many guys. Most of the guys you'll meet are the nicest guys
Yeah.
or girls, but they're killers. And
Dylan's got
that's why
grit
I love it.
level though. Like I've seen Dylan just take a straight beating in a round and come back and win the fight. And I mean that's grit on like a level that you don't understand. Like I can't fathom like how he just keeps it going. And the guys who train with him talk about like when he trains, it's like consistent, high output, nonstop, and like that's just his style. And I'm excited to see what that produces in 2020 because it seems like a lot of things have moved into place for them.
Yeah, he just loves it. He loves combat sports. I
He's
think
also got some of the
he
best
just
tattoos.
won a title, a Muay Thai title, and then he
Yeah,
lost it like a couple weeks later. That's how often he's doing Muay Thai now. So,
well, I
shout
mean,
out to Dylan,
Muay
man.
Thai, that's the
He's such a
frequency he
good
needs to be
guy.
fighting at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
'Cause some of these Thai guys
definitely.
fight twice a week.
Yeah, hey, that's that's another animal right there.
Well, let's move on to the big promotions in Asia, and I want to jump right into my favorite topic, One FC or One Championship. Um, a lot of news around them this year, but I want to start out with the Grand Prix because to me this was one of the most exciting things. And they had two Grand Prix, two weight classes in MMA, and it was dragged out over a year, and I thought it was fantastic. Like great drama, great fights. The lightweight Grand Prix though had obviously Eddie Alvarez got upset, and then he got knocked out by Nasty Yukin in the first round of the Grand Prix, and then Nasty Yukin fell out, and they brought Eddie back, and then Eddie got injured or something, and that led up to me being one of the greatest stories of the year, which was Christian Lee winning the Grand Prix on 10 days' notice against Doggy, who I thought was the
Yeah.
hands down favorite to win that tournament.
Everybody was thinking the same thing, you know. But there was also Lowen. Lowen was a big favorite to win the thing, and he got injured too.
Mm.
And Timofey also, he was you know, people are looking at him to win it
I want
too.
to see
But yes,
Timothy
with
versus Dog.
how it worked out, you're right. Doggy was the one. Everybody's like, no matter what, who steps in, it's if it's Eddie or whoever else, Doggy has the skill set to
Mm.
win it all, and Christian exposed him. That's all
Dude,
I can say.
on 10 days' notice, it made him look like
Yeah.
a child. And what a year for Christian.
Exposure.
Wins the
Yeah.
championship from Shinya Aoki in a fight that he was clearly losing. Drake, don't worry, that's coming, man. That's coming. Um, he's typing suplex talk in the chat, but oh, suplex
Yeah.
gate's coming.
Yeah.
Um, Christian had a great year. He won the championship from Shinya Aoki in a fight that he clearly lost the first round. Came back in the second to get the finish. Great finish. Won the championship, and then on 10 days' notice takes a spot in the Grand Prix against a monster. Like I said, Doggy was my dream fight for the finals of that was Timofey versus Doggy. I thought that would be an amazing matchup.
Mhm.
And Doggy was everyone's favorite. And on 10 days' notice, Christian Lee comes in and absolutely murks him in a way that we've never seen. Didn't even make him look like he was a fighter. And Christian didn't get the finish, but he took the fight on 10 days' notice. How amazing is that? And
Well,
I thought that was
Christian,
like the best ending to that tournament
yeah. Well, he's the story of the year for one championship.
for
That he's
sure.
the story of the year. Like
Yeah.
he's if there's a fighter of the year for one championship for the promotion, it's
Hmm.
Christian Lee. You cannot argue that
Yeah.
he's done so much in this year that and he's only what 21 years old right now.
Is he
He's
21?
he's
I thought
so
he was
young.
20
Yeah.
or he was
Okay,
fighting at
20.
7.
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Like that guy already still has like 15 more years of a career left, and he's already
I don't
done
care
so
if his
much.
next fight is against TRT Vitor, who's coming back at heavyweight. I'm gonna pick for Christian every time now. I mean, how can you pick against the guy after a year like this?
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah, Christian, hey, he's he's found the weight class that he
Yeah.
belongs in,
Mm.
which is what lightweight. It's
He's found his
featherweight. I
stride.
think he was killing. Yeah, I think he was killing himself to diet down during camps to go to featherweight, and
Yeah.
it was that old cliche, the diminishing returns. You know what I mean? Like it was true for him. Because who showed that is Martin. Martin showed that twice. Like,
Yeah.
hey, Christian, you're not gonna be the champ. You're not
Yeah.
gonna be the champ in the featherweight division
Yeah.
because I'm here. You know what I mean? So, and I think that was actually a good thing for Christian to kind of realize that, hey, maybe I should go up to lightweight and uh
Yeah. And
and
lightweight's
go chase after
170.
those.
It's really
Yeah,
welterweight. He's a welterweight fighter.
it shows you how big Christian is. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like how big he is, and I think he walks around most likely when he's in training camp at like 170. So it doesn't, that 10 days notice. I feel like it's not as a big deal,
Yeah.
for like weight wise,
Clearly,
as
he's in
everybody's
cardio for
thinking
days.
that.
He went 5
Yeah,
rounds, or 3 he went 3 rounds,
3 rounds,
3 rounds,
and
no
with
problem.
pressure, like massive pressure on
The whole
and
time.
Doggy kind of showed that like a lot of people were speculating about him. Can he get out of that first round and
Yeah.
continue the pace that he puts on?
Clearly
And
not.
he couldn't. He
Yeah.
couldn't because he came in and he definitely won the first round, right? Against Christian. Like he knocked him down.
Yeah.
He put on some like a
He wasn't
barrage and
one-sided.
Christian
He definitely
survived. Yeah, Christian survived and won the next two. And hey
yeah.
man, that could be the upset of the year. Who knows? Like a lot of people in the Western world don't even talk about that. But I'm saying, man, like if you know the narrative around that fight,
Yeah,
it's like that could be that's like on the top 5 of upsets of the year, don't you
I was
think?
on the edge of my seat that whole fight. It was amazing,
Yeah, it's
absolutely amazing. And
and
then we
there's
had
rumors now. You know
what's
the
that?
rumors. The
What are
rumors now is like, what's Christian gonna do next? And maybe we'll talk about that later. So
yeah.
let's not chop into
Well,
that. Let's go to the next
let's talk
topic.
about DJ real quick because he's the other
All
half
right.
of this story. And he had a tough go at the beginning of the Grand
Mhm.
Prix. Not the easiest fight against Yaya, Yuya, but he ended up coming through at the end. And I think he took every fight in the Grand Prix. Or he took the finals to a decision
Mhm.
against Kenyan, which I didn't expect. And I'm starting to
Yeah.
wonder, like, I don't know if DJ is just fighting safe or what. That he doesn't look like he did in the UFC.
I think it's just that it's different types of fighters. Like
Mm.
he's still getting used to the fighters out here. And
Yeah,
if
but
you
we're
notice,
so
like,
dominant against other people.
yeah, but it's styles, man. Like the style. There's a different style out there in here in Asia. It's a different body type. You know, like these Japanese guys bring different skill sets, and the Filipino guys also. Um, and they're bigger. They're
So he's
much bigger.
fighting bigger guys.
Yeah, they're bigger guys. I think DJ, he doesn't have to like worry about his weight so much. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I think these guys, I think uh him cutting to 125 in the UFC actually doesn't help him in one championship. Maybe his body after like a year of fighting and getting used to the hydration test and all that stuff. Um, maybe we might see a different DJ in 2020,
Mm,
but he has this biggest test coming up in Adriano, man. A lot of
yeah.
people believe Adriano's the guy to knock off DJ, like
I don't know about
legit knock off DJ,
it's
not
gonna be a
no
good
fake.
fight.
You know, yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be definitely a good fight. But there's a lot of guys. I talked to a lot of guys, man, fighters, and that's what they think, man.
Let's
They have
see.
faith.
Talking
Yeah.
about that weight cut, and I want to talk about one for the first time ever broadcast their mysterious weigh-in process.
Mhm.
But one of the weigh-ins that they or weigh-in and hydration test for the first time ever they broadcast it. And I know on MMA Twitter it was a kind of a big thing when that popped up that they scheduled it on their YouTube channel. And it was interesting to see uh, a a a sliver of transparency from one on this process, which they've been so caged about in the past.
Well, I like it, man. I like that they are taking the steps,
Mm,
to be more transparent. You know what I mean? Why look at the
100%
negative
agree.
side? I like to look at the positive side of them, scheduling it live, which is
Mm,
not, you know, if you wanted to hide something, it would not be live. It would
no,
be recorded and then you put it out, edited the way that you want it to be
yeah,
put out, right? But they're doing it live and it's a step, man. I feel like they're you see in Asia there's no commission. So they're
no.
their own commission. Just like when the UFC comes to Korea, right?
Yeah, but
In
when the
UFC
UFC comes
Busan,
to
they're their
Korea, they
own commission.
hire a commission from the US to come with them.
Do they? I don't even
Yeah,
I didn't see anybody.
yeah,
I didn't see anybody.
they bring
Whenever I go to like any UFC shows in Asia, I didn't see
yeah, they
any
bring
commission.
commissions from other states or like a third party commission to independently operate the show. One championship has their employees as their commission essentially. But
Okay,
again,
okay. So
I agree with you that that step towards transparency is a huge positive. I mean, I think no one dogged them on that at all, and
mhm.
we shouldn't. I mean, that's a step in the right direction.
I think
I've
people still dog them on that, man. You know
what's that?
how Twitter is. People
Yeah, well,
still dog them on that because that's what Twitter is. Twitter is just people dogging people all the time.
yeah, but I mean, for them to take a step, I mean, it's a huge step for them. I mean, you got to
Mhm.
give them credit where credit is due, and
Yeah.
they did something really good there, in my opinion. So
And when people didn't pass, they put it up there. They
yeah,
put up
they
the
pulled the fight.
numbers.
They pulled the
Yeah, they
fight.
pulled the fight, and
Yeah,
and that's great, man. Even I didn't pretty to be honest with you, like pulling the fight. I wish they would have just made it a catchweight fight, or make a solution,
but
for
they didn't
allow
pull the
them
fight
the fighters
because
to
of
fight.
the weight. They pulled the fight because of hydration.
Oh, okay, okay. Then
Yeah,
that's justifiable then.
yeah,
That's
just fine.
good.
And I mean, it shows that they are at least giving the appearance of taking safety
Mhm.
seriously.
Mhm.
And I think they are. I think they made the changes for the right reason. I'm just I wish there was more transparency on the process because we've seen a lot of fighters complain, and I've heard stories from other people of favorite fighters getting sort of a pass on hydration
Mhm.
or getting second chances. So I would love to see a little bit more transparency in that overall process because there are 3 checks during the week, and it'd be nice to see that. But again, the logistics of that may be too much for them. They are
Mhm.
their own commission, their own regulatory body, and we'll get into some of that in a little bit. One of the things that was interesting that came out of the whole broadcast weigh-in and some of the social media stuff that went around was the thing I'm calling Pissgate, which is we saw
Mhm.
photos emerge of Rich Franklin and Bashir Ahmad, who are two one championship employees handling urine samples without gloves. And Rich Franklin later said, I forget whose podcast it was, but Rich Franklin said they were testing the hydration levels or the gravity
Mhm.
levels of the urine. I thought that was it was funny that the pictures went around and like one of them is like Rich Franklin in a bathroom with shorts and flip flops holding a bottle or a cup of pee with no gloves, and then Bashir doing the same at a table. One great to show that they're actually you've got guys, and those are probably the two nicest, most trustworthy guys. If I was going to believe
Mhm.
anyone in one championship staff, if they said something on face value, those would be the two guys. Um, but like the fact that they don't have gloves on, I think was like the funniest thing. And for a company that claims to have like $1 billion plus valuation, buy some latex gloves, man.
Yeah, definitely. I don't even know if I would want to handle my own piss without gloves. So,
Right?
yeah, but yeah, the pictures. Who released those pictures? Is it just like a random person that took the pictures and released them, or is someone taking credit for that?
I think what happened was a someone on the who was there at the weigh-ins posted it on their Instagram, and
Mm,
someone on Twitter captured it and reposted it, and it's sort of got
mm.
like reshared all around Twitter.
Oh, okay. Why would you be taking pictures of someone handling piss? I don't understand that.
I think it was a fighter just trying to talk about like, oh, here's the weigh-in hydration process, and they
uh,
posted something,
uh,
and I
okay, so they're trying to show like, hey, they're doing something. It's not like fake. They're
yeah,
actually testing the hydration. Okay,
and
I
I
understand
but
now.
I the funny thing was that I think it was the picture with Bashir. It was just like 50 samples in front of him, and he had no gloves. I mean, I felt so bad for the guy.
It's like
Um,
the Pepsi test.
yeah,
Pepsi
but
challenge.
they're clearly going through and testing all these
Yeah,
samples, and I think that was
yeah.
the good thing that it showed that they really are doing the test.
So we're getting a sneak peek, right?
Yeah,
Throughout the last like year or so, sneak peek into like what the hydration tests look like, and like the weigh-ins are becoming live, and that's a good step, man, because there has
great.
been a lot of talk, in the past of like what's really going on, and hey, I'm it shows that if you speak loud enough, they can
Mhm.
hear you,
Yeah,
and they're gonna take the steps. And in 2020, hopefully, they make it more. They expose themselves more, and make more things transparent, and then people will talk less, and then
yeah.
they will get more respect out of that as a promotion, as an organization.
I
And
hope
I love it, man, because I talk to a lot of one championship fighters, man, and a lot of them have a good situation there,
yeah,
compared to if they were fighting for, let's say, for the UFC. They would probably get screwed in their pay, you know what I mean?
yeah,
A lot of the times, if they went into the UFC. So, you know, I, I'm looking at it as like, I want to see what's next. I want to see like uh how much we can learn from them, how much more they can teach us about their organization in
yeah.
2020. But
Like
a
I
lot
said,
of
I
people
love
are
the fights they
yeah.
put on. I love some of the fighters they have on their roster are amazing. Not all,
Mhm.
but I mean, they don't
Yeah.
have the best roster in the world, but they have some great fighters in Asia, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you can
And
say that about Bellator too. You've seen some of the
yeah,
Bellator
and I'll
cards.
tell you, having been to UFC events and having been to one championship events, I would say that one championship's like live production is a
Mm.
step above UFC's.
I have no idea. I've never been to a one championship event, so I have no idea.
But for
People
me,
probably think like I've been to like every one championship event. I've never like this is me. I've
Yeah.
never been to a one championship event in my life. I've been to a few UFC events
Yeah.
as I've never been to an event as a fan. I've always been at an event covering the event. So and it's only been UFC or local events like in Korea, but
Mm,
never one
I've been to
championship.
I've only been to UFC events as a fan. I've been to only one championships as media, and only when I'm in country, like for something else. So if it's in Thailand, I've been to Thailand shows, which I don't go to anymore because one, I don't think one would let me in, um, since I'm essentially blacklisted by one. But when I've been in Malaysia, I've been to shows that happen to coincide, and I've been to shows in Singapore. But yeah, live production is great on their shows. I think it beats the UFC's live production, but overall product, I think the UFC puts on better fights.
Oh, there's no question, man. Like I've wrote this on Twitter. Like there's no question like where the
Yeah,
biggest fights are.
in the
It's in the
world.
UFC.
Yeah.
Like UFC, what was it? 245, the last big one that we had. That
Hmm.
was just an example, a taste of what they have to offer, man.
Yeah.
Triple title. That main event was bonkers, nuts,
Crazy.
crazy. Of Covington broken jaw, still fighting.
Yeah.
For the next 3 rounds. That's come on, man. Like there's nothing else like that. But
Nothing
yeah,
like
let's
that.
get back to the Asian MMA. Let's do
Yeah.
this.
We'll talk about UFC in a bit. Next on the one, keeping with one, I want to talk about a story that our boy Michael Fidel broke, I believe, which is one lies about WADA. So for I think over a year now, and this started with a tweet from James Goiter, that one was going to implement WADA style testing. And then they're like, no, I asked some people that won about it. They all denied it. And it sort of trickled out the way one does with little bits here and there. And Michael Fidel goes straight to WADA and they're like, yo, we're not even sure who one championship is. So it was
Yeah.
like this big thing where they're like, "Oh, we're gonna do drug testing," and then turns out they're not even working with WADA. And then we see that they signed Vitor Belfort. He's coming back as a heavyweight and looks like the Incredible Hulk from Brazil.
Hmm.
So there's clearly a discrepancy here in their narrative. What did you think of this?
I thought yes, that was kind of funny. That was funny. Like they were saying one thing and some people were reporting another, and then Michael goes to WADA and gets the lowdown. And then I think they had a response to that article, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly, about
Kathy said,
they're not
WADA style testing. We don't have
yeah,
to work
WADA
with
stuff.
WADA to do that style testing."
Alright. Well, we don't know until they start releasing results. Until
Mhm.
people start getting suspended, we don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know if they're actually testing or not.
Yeah,
I've heard that they're testing from fighters. Like fighters have told me, like, yeah, they're testing. Like
yeah,
I've been tested, right? So I know what's going on because why would the fighters lie about being tested?
yeah.
Nobody wants to be tested, right? For anything, right? Do you want to go take an AIDS test? No, that shit is scary, right? Like you don't want to be taking those tests,
What
right? It
you
doesn't
did,
matter what it is, what kind
yeah.
of yeah. What was that guy that you were talking about?
Never mind.
Bear bear back.
BBW.
Yeah, BBW, yeah, whatever. Anyways, yeah. So any test, nobody wants to take. So guys telling me, guys that are big names in the industry telling me like, yeah, I've been tested, man. I know I've been tested,
Yeah.
and so people are being tested. Um, like one like Chatri saying one thing and then what's being done in the background, in the organization, I don't know. It's not clear. Like I wish that would be more clear
Yeah.
next year. I wish they would like come out and give us the guidelines of like what's actually going on and maybe even tell us who's been tested.
Mhm.
Like USADA does. USADA will like put it on their website like this person has been tested. This is the result. And so even USADA is not perfect either, right? Come on, you
By
got
far, by far.
yeah, it's like testing is a fucking murky situation right there. Like it's I don't know, man. It's this the testing thing is like to be honest with you, I don't care about testing. If
Mhm.
the UFC
Yeah,
wants to
I
test,
don't
great. If they don't want to test, great. You know what I mean? It's the fighters are the ones that should decide. Like, should we
Mhm.
be tested or not? You know what I mean? But yeah, that whole situation, like you said, it's like he said, she said. He said
Yeah.
this, she said this. It's gonna go back and forth. There's no evidence, really. You know what I mean? Like, because I heard that
Definitely.
you could work with WADA, but
Yeah.
not work directly with WADA.
Well, no, so I feel like Chatri's statement was a real rollback on what he had said when he's like, "Oh, we don't need to work with water directly with their water sanctioned
Mhm,
labs."
mhm.
That kind of takes away a layer of transparency
But is
from what
that
he was
true
saying
though?
before. What's that?
Is that true? Can you work with WADA approved labs without working directly with WADA?
Sure, but it doesn't mean that they're going to have the oversight of WADA. It could be a
All
lab
right.
that's WADA certified testing facility. It doesn't mean it has the same level of scrutiny as if it
Mhm.
were a WADA test, because
Yeah.
there's different layers of oversight there. So that's one of the things to think about. And I know I've heard from fighters the same as you that they are being tested now, which is a change because
Mm,
in 2016 there was an interview that was done on the Caption Mark podcast with Shannon Wichachai talking about he had never been tested
mhm.
for drugs in one championship. That they had only ever done like blood tests and communicable disease tests and a basic health check. So that has definitely been a change. But again, with Vitor coming back in the fray, how is that going to unfold? Because he's clearly not au natural. He's coming back at heavyweight and he looks like a monster.
Well,
I
that's
mean, are
okay
they
with
giving
me.
TRT exemptions? I mean, what's in is he allowed to have like a 17.5 million to 1 uh epi to testosterone ratio? What's the case?
I have no idea, but they must have TRT exemptions, especially with doctors, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that if you go to your doctor and I know in Korea, like you could get TRT at the
Yeah,
hospital from your doctor if you
you can
test
get it
low
here
enough.
in Thailand from a pharmacy on the corner.
Yeah, so maybe if you have the doctor's approval, you
Mm.
can take it. And that's how one championship works. I don't know because it, like you said, we don't know clearly what's going on.
It's
So,
such a dirty
uh,
workaround. Such a
yeah.
dirty
So, like so that's what I want to see. I want to see more of like, okay, if this is going on, like, how is this going on? If
yeah,
it's like, if it's in the guidelines, hey, it's in the guidelines.
yeah,
That's clear. Like
so transparent.
let the organization do what they do, right? It's in the
Yeah,
guidelines. Vitor comes back. But yeah, I think that's the one of the gonna be one of the stories of next year is like Vitor comes back. What does he look like?
yeah. He's gonna look like the
MMA
Hulk.
Twitter is gonna fucking bust a nut. You know what I mean? Like when he takes off the shirt and he's just like he's looking like like the Hulk.
So we got hate the player, hate the game in the chat saying one shadiness and transparency. Call one FC out on Twitter, they'll block you. They are so sensitive to criticism. Hashtag block club. Me too, man. Block club. One's had me blocked since the evolved conflict of interest piece. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're notorious for that. They'll block you if you question them on something, or if you don't answer Lauren Mack's phone call, the VP of PR, when he hits you up to tell you to take a story down and you say no, you find yourself blocked. Um, it's real life. That's how it is. So I'm proud to be in that block club for sure. Moving on, though, I want to talk about my favorite subject for one championship this year is the legality of suplexes. And one, it's completely stupid. It's a stupid rule. It's a stupid move to make illegal, especially considering it's a high school wrestling move, right? And these are pro fighters. And for an organization that used to have soccer kicks and knees to the head, well, they still have knees to the head, but they used to have soccer kicks, you're gonna make suplexes illegal, which is the dumbest thing ever. And then you're gonna implement it completely randomly.
Hey, they're their own commission. You
Yeah,
could
well,
implement things randomly if you want, man. Like, I understand what you're saying, like, and a lot of wrestlers, I've talked to so many wrestlers, and you've probably talked to so many wrestlers and fighters,
so
like, what is going on with this suplex thing,
and
and
they implemented after Dream Man it was a few years ago. Dream Man won a fight with a suplex, and they're like, "Oh no, suplexes
mhm,
are illegal. You can't win that fight."
mhm.
And they have
I'm
this fantasy, competition commission or whatever they call them that overturns fights, makes rules on the fly. no, sorry, jabs are illegal. You know, they could do something like that. And it just so, again, the lack of transparency. It's so arbitrary. It's so stupid for them to just be like, oh, you can't do this or you can do that, or now it's legal, but it wasn't. And I think the perfect example of that was the Angela Lee fight at 1 Century,
Mm.
where fifth round, and that was a close fight. I mean, I had it going for Angela at that point, but regardless, if it went to a decision at the end of the fifth, I think she won that fight. Um, she gets a back control on Zhang, and lands a beautiful belly to back suplex. And even their commentator Mitch Chilson called it a beautiful belly to back suplex. Like straight on her shoulder and head, straight up, and which is clearly an illegal move. And here's the other thing, right? Oliver Koss was the referee for that fight, and I think personally he is the least credible referee in all of MMA, simply for the fact that he is a company man. He's bought and paid for by One Championship. He's a full-time employee of One Championship. Now, all referees for One Championship work for them directly, but he's a full-time employee there. So he's not going to go against whatever the wishes of the company are. He's a straight company man. And he makes some of the worst calls in Asian MMA. Now, in general, he does a good job of keeping fighters safe, stopping fights for the most part. But if I was a fighter and I was fighting a one of one's favorite, one of one's golden boys, I would hate to see him as the referee for that fight, because I would have zero confidence in his ability to officiate it fairly. And so he lets the suplex go. Not a word, nothing, no warning, doesn't stop it, nothing. The suplex happens. Angela goes on to get the finish. Great finish. Amazing fight for Angela, especially since she had lost the first fight. I mean, I thought fantastic. Um, but and then I got to give credit to homegirl who asked the question, because I tweeted at her. I gotta I'm doing so bad now. The girl from Fanside, do you know her name, John?
Oh, the editor?
Yeah,
Oh, Amy Kaplan?
Amy. So I got to give credit to Amy, because I tweeted at her to ask about the suplex during the press conference, and she actually did. And she asked about the legality of the suplex, and Chachi basically said, "Oh, we have to have the competition committee look at it, and suplexes are only actually illegal if they land in a certain way." And then Angela went on to respond that she thought it was a legal suplex because she had turned her, but in reality she hadn't. Young landed on her head. Um, and nothing against Angela at all. I think it's a stupid rule. It shouldn't be illegal. Her brother had already been screwed out of a win. Christian had been screwed out of a win for a suplex for a fight that he looked amazing in. So I
Yeah,
don't want to see Angela
destruction.
lose because of it. But what I want to see is one, like, have some honesty about their own rule set, and not have these officials that have zero credibility, working for them, making these calls.
Man, it's you know,
A lot there.
it's just what it is, there's a lot to digest right there,
Yeah.
like, I think if someone's watching this for the first time, they're like, "What's going on?" Uh, and going back to Angela Lee, man, like, that's just an example of why you should not have the suplex rule. Just get it out of there, like, keep it in, like, what's the
That was a
point of
beautiful fight.
'cause yeah, it was man, that was such a good fight, like, it's
That was
one
the
of the
best
best
fight
fights of
ever.
the year. Yeah, for women's MMA in one championship, best fight ever, like, it was so fun to watch, and having that little bit of a controversy, I guess, with the suplex, it kind of taints the fight,
Yeah,
and, uh I wish they would just clear it up and just get rid of the suplex rule,
yeah.
and I understand why they did it, why they got rid of the suplex rule, because I think someone
I
got
don't
severely
I don't
injured. I think
understand.
someone got severely injured by a suplex. From what I remember, I think it was the one of the guys from Cambodian Top Team. He got suplexed in a fight. I think maybe it was the Dream Man fight. Maybe did he fight a Cambodian Top Team guy? But he got severely injured, like terribly, like on his neck and his back and stuff. And I remember watching some of that unfold on Facebook,
Hmm.
and I believe that's why they kind of put that rule in there. But I feel like, hey, just get rid of it. You know what I mean? I understand that people can get injured from it, and if you do it wrong, and if the guy lands wrong,
Yeah.
um, but man, I just keep it. Just keep the rule in.
It's a high school
Just
wrestling.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just keep suplexes in. I liked suplexes.
Yeah.
Hey, did you see the one on road? The last road event. The guy spiked the other guy on the head, and they didn't even like disqualify the guy. He just like gave him some time to recover, and then they continued fighting. And the guy that got spiked
Pride
won the
shit.
fight.
That was some pride shit.
Yeah, so it was like straight up. He just picked him up and spiked him right on his head, and the road just let him go. You know, they're like, "Hey, he's all good. And he won the fight by decision. So hey, he could recover from that stuff. But anyways,
On the suplex thing too, Drake Riggs, our boy in the comments here, saying that he hasn't even heard back from them yet, and he's been
uh,
trying to follow up. He wrote that piece on the body lock, so you know it's clear that they're not wanting to talk about it for some reason, and it's a stupid rule. Like you said, and I agree, it completely tainted what was one of the best fights, not just in Angela's career, but in one championship this year. Was that suplex rule is tainting the fact that she had an amazing performance.
yeah, definitely had amazing. Well, if she would have a breakout performance, that's the breakout performance of her
Yeah, even
career.
even her
I
first
feel
fight
like
where she
this.
lost, up until the point where she lost, she looked amazing. Zhang looked amazing. I
Yeah,
mean, they're both top level fighters in Asia.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it, man. I love the rivalry that they have.
yeah.
And next year we're gonna see another one. I guarantee
I
it.
hope
I
I hope
guarantee we're gonna see another one.
hope we see the rubber match. Now, of
We're gonna
course,
see like 10 of them.
if it not that they sell tickets at one, but or pay-per-views.
Yeah,
Money's not an object, I guess. It's the best
yeah,
honor, loyalty, respect in martial arts.
definitely.
Or as John Cena would say, hustle, loyalty, respect.
Yeah.
But both of those fights, Angela and Christian's big fights this year, are both at 1 Century, which was this huge doubleheader in Japan. To me, great cards, two great cards. And they were facing that whole was it typhoon or hurricane, whatever was happening there. Crazy natural
Same thing.
going
It's the
on.
same thing.
Yeah. And you know, the trains were shut down, the city was flooding, they had emergency generators, but at the
Oh,
same time,
yo, hey, I was gonna go. That was gonna be my first one championship events, like
yeah,
covering the events, and I bought tickets and hotels, and I was gonna fly that Saturday
yeah,
morning to Tokyo because it's only 2 hour flight, right? And I could make it for the weigh-ins and or the media day or whatever Saturday, right? And the fights are on Sunday, and I couldn't fly, man, because the typhoon canceled all the flights. My hotel, I paid for that in advance, and then they said, since like when you pay for hotel in advance, and it says no refund no matter what. I got that
yeah,
deal, so I lost money on the hotel, and then my flights got canceled, so I just had to stay home and watch it from my TV. But, yeah, man, like that, like I was looking forward to that because I felt like, yeah, man, there's some crazy fights on there,
yeah,
and even even like the undercard was like insane,
yeah.
and I was
Both
like looking forward to that so much. Yeah, and I was looking forward to that, but then I couldn't make it, man. I was wishing to be live, but hey, maybe in the future one day I'll be able to go
disasters.
to a show.
To me, though, I mean, it was too much for one day. It was too
Oh,
much. Like,
was it? It was
I went
overload.
home, and it was just like it was all consuming of my life for a whole day.
It was like that meme of the guy that's sitting in front of the computer and then he has all the milk around him.
Yeah.
You know that?
The problem is that it was 2 stacked cards, and every fight was interesting. And so there was no chance for me to
Mm.
be like, "Okay, I can take a break now," except for, like, what, 3 hours between cards.
Yeah, it was if you love MMA, like
Mm,
if you love MMA, like you can watch it for like 10 hours.
yeah,
That was the perfect day. That was your Christmas right there.
yeah.
Christmas in
If you're an
what
Asian
when was that?
that was a
Yeah.
great day, especially with the
Yeah.
great pre-finals and the
Yeah.
Lee's Young fight. It was so much goodness all in once. And but it was like just too much. By the end of the day, I was like literally exhausted. I was like, I can't watch another one card for like a month.
Yeah, I had to pick and choose. Like I would watch it, the fights, and then I'll keep it on, but I'll
Yeah,
walk away and I'll be doing something because it was a whole day thing. Like you couldn't
yeah.
just like go and watch it for a couple hours and it's over. It's like you gotta be have the TV on for
How
the
exhausted
whole
would you have
day.
been if they're covering that live?
Yeah, it would have been pretty insane, but a lot of content though, which is always great for somebody that's doing media.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I want to move on from this. We already talked about Christian Lee, which is the next thing on the docket, but he had a great year. We already touched on that. UFC in Asia this year, pretty big year. You were at most of the events. Talk us through what the UFC look like in Asia and what you expect from them next year.
Um, I was in Shenzhen and I was at Busan last weekend. Those are the two shows that I went to. I did not go to Singapore, and I believe that they had a show earlier this year in Beijing, too, which was pretty massive. Curtis
Yeah,
Blades versus Ngannou, which
yeah.
was like, damn, I missed that. I wish I was there for that. But yeah, I thought they did a pretty good year. Like it's slow. Asia's a slow market for the UFC, and they're not shy. They're not shy about saying that. But I feel like next year, the Chinese market is gonna
Huge.
blow. It's gonna in the next 5 years, the Chinese market is gonna it's gonna be bigger than the Brazilian market for
We've got our
MMA.
UFC Chinese champion.
Exactly, and that's the first step is to get the champion in there and to promote the UFC with the champion in China. And then now they built the PI there
Yep.
and they're growing the next generation of fighters at the PI
Over a
every
million
6
potential
months.
fans.
Every 6 months they have a scholarship program where they bring in they have a combine like the NFL, and
Yeah.
then they put them through the combine and they select the best fighters they feel like they could uh cultivate in the 6 month period, and then they house them, feed them, and they give them access to the whole PI. And hey, man, if any fighter can do that, they're gonna become much better than they are
For
if they
sure.
stayed at home at their local gym, right? So you're gonna see some gems, man, coming out of that program, and just them stocking the regional scene. I'm pretty sure the UFC got guys traveling around China looking for the next big name, the next
Absolutely,
uh,
they do.
Yang Sedong and those types of fighters,
That's a
uh,
million people to
already
look
talented.
at. Yeah.
Yeah, and I see it growing. Like I feel the UFC is gonna be concentrated in China. I don't
Yeah.
see like the UFC. I don't think the UFC is gonna go back to Singapore from what I heard, and 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 their last card kind of showed you that. Like
Mm.
there was not many Asian fighters on it.
Fine.
I think Lomo's the only Asian fighter, if I'm not mistaken, on
Oh,
that
that's
whole card.
mention about Tiger, right? Is they put the
Yeah,
first Thai fighter
in the
in the
UFC.
UFC. Yeah.
Yeah.
Loma the
Um.
Pocket.
Yeah. What is it?
Isn't her nickname the Pocket Rocket?
No, no. Loma's her nickname.
Oh, Amp, right?
Yeah, Loma I think means dolphin in
It's her Thai
in
nickname.
Thai. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thai name is
I
Loma,
think I
dolphin
prefed her
or something.
before in Full Metal Dojo.
Yeah. Yeah, against the Pocket Rocket. I think she fought the Pocket Rocket. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, like going back to the Singapore, I don't feel like they're gonna have any shows in Singapore. Korea, it'll be hard for them to come back
I
in
think they have a
2020.
I think they have a contractual agreement with like the tourism ministry of Singapore or something.
Hmm.
They might have to do another one.
But if they're not making money, the tourism industry or
Mm,
whatever,
yeah,
I don't think they'll bring them back. It'd be no point of bringing them back to lose money, right?
for
And
sure.
I don't know what the crowds were like, but it didn't seem like they were catering to the Singaporean fans or to
Small
even
stadium
Asian fans.
out, but it's a small stadium.
Yeah. So I feel they're putting all their money, all their resources into China.
Mm,
And that's how major that fight's coming up next year
yep.
with Joanna and her. If Wile wins that fight and wins decisively,
Mm.
like by knockout or something like that, that even makes it explode 10 times more in
But
China, even though that fight's gonna be in Las Vegas.
you were just in Busan, right? For you
Yeah,
took the last train to Busan to
yeah.
check out the
No, I took
event.
the first train. It was like
First train
7
to
a.m.
Busan, sorry, and watch the last train to Busan on the first train to
Yeah,
Busan.
yeah.
What was the atmosphere like there from the UFC staff, from the fighters in
It's just
Korea?
like any other event, you know what I mean? Just they're just doing the event. It's
But you
uh
think it's gonna be
yeah,
hard
the
for
Korean
there?
it it's hard to say. It took 4 years last time,
Yeah,
so uh, it's very optimistic to say that they're going to come back next year. But I know that they're planning on coming back in the next 2 years,
mm,
from what I heard. So that's good to hear from them. But I don't see them going to any other Asian countries. What other Asian countries do they plan on going to? They have said nothing.
I'd love to
They
see
they
them
have
more.
where?
Japan.
Oh, Japan. I don't think so. I
I
think Japan is done. Huh?
think they've been in like 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't feel like Japan is they're not even thinking about Japan. They don't even really sign Japanese fighters anymore. If you look at the roster.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, not a ton. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
so
not a ton.
um I'm pretty sure if there's a Japanese fighter that that's worth it, they would sign them. But other than that, most of the Japanese fighters they all fight for Ryzen and one championship. Look at the lineups for Ryzen and one championship. It's heavy on Japanese fighters, and which
Mm,
is a good thing, man. If they're getting paid more to fight for those promotions, why not? Why not stay and get paid and still fight good fighters? It's not like
and
you're
not
not
have to.
gonna fight. Yeah, that's the major thing. You don't have to fly to, Afghanistan to
Right.
fight, right? You just stay in your area. And I think that's why a lot of guys are picking like Ryzen and one championship over the UFC now. They
I think
understand the
in
game.
Japan, that U.S. trip is hard.
Yeah, it's harder to go to the US compared
Yeah,
to coming over here.
yeah,
That's why you see a lot of guys come over here. They don't really have much of a problem adjusting. But going back, jet lag is a serious problem when
absolutely.
you fly to North
Every time I go
America.
back, I'm always struggling. But when I come,
Yeah.
if you time your flights well, I do okay.
Yeah,
With
so
jet lag, and that's
I
not
see
even
like
active
if I was
internet.
gonna make a prediction
Yeah.
of UFC events in Asia, there will be maybe optimistically 5.
Mm, next year,
A little bit more. Yeah, next year. And most of them will be in China. Shanghai, Beijing. I would like
Shanghai,
to see them go to like Macau or Hong Kong. Maybe Hong Kong, right?
probably not Hong
Because
Kong.
it's close to Shenzhen. But yeah, oh yeah, of course, probably not Hong Kong, but that would
Uh,
be an ideal location, because it's English speaking
yeah,
and uh and there's a lot of fans in Hong Kong. Well, not right now, they're busy.
yeah,
But
they're big.
but they're busy doing other combat sports. Now yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah, it's optimistic 5. Who
Yeah,
knows what can happen, but that's
it'd be nice.
optimistically 5 events.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Hate the player, hate the game. Bellator Risen. We are definitely getting there. Risen is next on our topic, and I think with that suggestion from the comments, yes, let's talk about Risen in their stacked year, their relationship with Bellator, and what we have coming up. I mean, for me, I think this was the most stacked year for Risen ever. What do you think, John?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it just gets better. It's just getting better and better and better. The
Yeah,
lineups are getting more stacked. The names are getting bigger. They're creating stars.
yeah.
They're creating stars and it's working out for them. Some promotions they try to create certain stars, it doesn't work out for them, but for Ryzen, it has worked out for them. From
What they're
the
doing
Asakura
is just
brothers,
organic.
yeah, Asakura brothers, you got Manel Cape,
Yeah.
the bantamweight division is just stacked. It's crazy what they have created in the bantamweight division. And if you follow that promotion, you would know that. I don't have to explain to the person that's following Ryzen, but
I
yeah,
think every fight is a high quality, high level fight when Risen does a
mm,
card.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. Even their so-called smaller shows
Mm,
have sick matchups. They always bring in like 2, 3 sick matchups every single time, and sometimes some of the fights surprise you. Like you don't think it's a good matchup, and then they get in that ring, and that Japanese dude be like, "Hadaka," and then they start fighting.
yeah.
That's what a lot of people love. They love that they do it in Japanese. You know,
I,
like the announcers are Japanese. They say everything in Japanese, which is fun.
and I think that's definitely one of the keys. And they have great English commentary. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that it is a Japanese promotion, that it's it has that it has a little bit of that throwback feel of Pride. Pride never die, but
Mm.
there's something just really sweet about it. Something really nice about Risen, and they've done some things on the marketing side that are great, and they've really promoted good fights and good fighters, and they might not be household names to everyone, but they are fantastic fights.
Yeah, and um let's go back to the pronunciation of the promotion. Okay, like the
Say Ri-
first show,
Risen.
Ryzen. Ryzen is the proper way to pronounce it. A lot of people say Risen, and let me give you an example of why it's not Risen.
Okay.
I think it was the fifth or sixth show they had a commentator come on, right?
Mhm.
And and he was saying Risen through the whole show, the English commentary. This was before Frank Trigg and everybody, right? And he was fired, I think. Let me don't quote me on that, but I feel like he was fired for saying the promotion the wrong way. I'm
They
just
chopped
saying. I'm just saying. Huh?
they chopped the tip of his pinky off as well.
Yeah, they did. I think so, man. Like you never saw that guy again, man. Like, but I'm just saying you could say whatever the way you want it. I'm just saying,
No,
like,
Rising. I've been saying it wrong for years. I need to say it not Risen, but Rising.
yeah. But you say it whatever way you want, man. This is a free country,
I don't
I
wanna lose
think.
my pinkies, bro. I'm gonna say Rising from
Yeah.
Let's talk about their relationship with Bellator, and that's produced some very interesting matchups and some very interesting events.
Yeah. Yeah, it's coming up this weekend. You got Bellator Japan.
Yeah,
Uh,
back to back.
man, yeah, Rampage versus Fedor. A lot of people are like, "Oh, these guys are super old," but hey, they're there to fight.
I don't care if those 2 are 60, I would go to that fight.
They're there to fight. Like they're gonna go in there and they're gonna try to knock each other out, and that's what people want to see. They don't want to
Absolutely.
see no strategic matchup between Fedor and Rampage. That's not what they're gonna bring. You're not gonna see Fedor come in and stay on the outside and jab his way to a decision. That's not what's gonna happen, and that's why they put this fight together.
Houston and Alexander, you don't wanna see that fight. You wanna see 2 guys who are gonna come out and throw bombs.
Exactly, and that's what's gonna happen. I think the fight will be over in like the first minute.
Yeah.
That's what's gonna happen, and that's what people want.
Who's your pick for that fight?
I'm picking Fedor. I like Fedor, but
I think Rampage
Rampage.
is
I
a
heard
really good fighter.
Rampage is the fresher fighter, and I was reading something about how he's put on like so much muscle in the last
Yeah, I think he's
uh,
gonna be bigger
in,
than
yeah, and he's been working with TJ Dillashaw's coach.
Oh, so he's on EPO.
I don't know, but that's what I've seen pictures.
He's gonna be twice the size muscularly. He's gonna have cardio like a marathoner.
What if he comes in looking like Bob Sapp, just the
That'd be
reverse?
Bob Sapp, but can take a punch.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, there's a lot of good fights on there. You got like Sydney Outlaw versus Michael Chandler.
Yep,
Uh, you got Yamauchi
yep.
versus Darren Cruikshank. That's a very interesting matchup right there.
Yeah,
Uh,
King versus what's her name? Van Zant.
yeah, Van Zant. The rematch. Like
Yeah,
Van Zant went in there and submitted her, choked her out unconscious in the first round or first fight, and now she gets the rematch. I think Reina wanted that fight, so they're gonna give it to her. I
Reina.
think you picking your poison right there. The girl came in and you should have took a little bit more time, but
I
they're
agree.
fighters. They want
It's a
revenge.
good fight for Reina. It's a fight that I think she can lose easily.
Yeah, definitely.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So That's gonna be a stack up. When are you flying out?
Oh, Saturday morning.
Nice.
I'm flying Saturday. I got another job too, so I got to work today. Today's Friday, so I got to work tonight and then wake up probably around 3 a.m., catch the airport bus at 4 a.m., get on my flight, and then land probably early morning in Japan or in Tokyo.
Nice.
So that's the plan.
Now, what do you think of? Do you think the Bellator Risen relationship will develop into something more for Asia going forward? Do you think it's really just going to be like a kind of like a here and there thing?
It's gonna start slow. Bellator and Ryzen, this relationship, this is the first show
Yeah,
in this collaboration. So I think it's gonna start slow. Maybe in 2020 they'll have like 2 or 3 shows. I'm pretty sure they're gonna have more than one, and and this is a way for Ryzen to expand out of Japan.
yeah,
I think that they love being in Japan, but they want to expand. They want to take over. And what's the better way to take over other than to collaborate with Bellator? Who wants to get into the Asian market
so this is the thing.
and
I
who has
don't
money.
think Risen wants to be in the US. I think they want their brand to be
No, it's
known.
not about the U.S.
No.
It's not about US. It's about Ryzen expanding in Asia
Yeah,
and and Bellator expanding into Asia, but not by themselves. Because this is what Bellator always does. They always collab
yeah,
with the promotions in the region, right? But this is another level of collaboration because Ryzen already has a massive following, a
mm,
viewership, and it helps both. Like you said, they're not you don't think they're going to go to North America, and that probably will happen once in a while, but it's not their main focus. And Bellator or Ryzen wants to be more known in North America, and this is the way to do it, right? Is to hold
yeah.
hands with
I think
Bellator without
they're
actually going.
partnering with Bellator. They can be better known in the US without having to actually go there and be
Yeah, yeah,
subject to a commission.
yeah. That's great, man. That's perfect. Perfect situation for them.
That's what Pride never had, and I think that's what Pride probably needed.
Well, it's the same guys that ran Pride that run Ryzen, so you got to learn
Well,
from your mistakes.
let's hope they learn from those mistakes. Moving on, let's talk about some Korean MMA, and I want to start out with Road. We had the finale of their tournament, $1 million tournament this year, and we were talking about right before the broadcast is like 12 years in the making, right?
Yeah, yeah. It took very, very long to complete that tournament, and I think because it took so long, it lost the luster
Plus
that
steam.
people had in the steam and the people had in the beginning. Because I at the start of that tournament, worldwide,
When I first heard about
Road
it.
had a lot of interest, right?
Mm,
Worldwide, even because for MMA, Twitter is the number one place to go to.
yeah,
There's no, like if you go to Twitter and people are sharing and talking about it and liking it and making gifs and all that stuff on Twitter, then you have interest around the world, right? Because that's where everybody congregates. But at the beginning of that tournament, that's what everybody was about. Road's like, oh man, they're gonna have the $1 million tournament. It's gonna be exciting, and it attracted a lot of eyes to the other parts of Road, like
yeah,
their open weight division and their women's division, and it helped them a lot. But then
yeah,
by the end of the tournament, it took so goddamn long that everybody forgot about Road, and they didn't even care anymore about Road, and that was kind of like the destruction of the promotion worldwide. Now they've actually become a regional promotion instead of
definitely not
a promotion
interested
that's trying to branch out.
in feel anymore.
Exactly. They don't have that anymore. And I think that's okay. It's all right. You don't have it. You go back to your roots and you could maybe build it back up again. Uh but I I have no idea, man. Like I feel like Road has some international what is it? Or not international, internal problems right now. So Uh, we'll see what happens in 2020. They haven't announced their schedule, so I don't know
May-
what's going on. Hmm?
Maybe they don't have one, a schedule.
Yeah, yeah. You never know, man. Like I don't know what's going on, but you just hear things.
We got
Uh,
a player hate the game in the comments. I just threw this up on the screen. Uh,
yeah.
He's saying that one and Risen Bellator will lock out the UFC's expansion into Asia, except in China.
And I think that's okay. I think
Yeah,
the UFC doesn't care. Like, okay, do
this is
it.
the thing, right? One doesn't care about selling tickets because everyone knows they give away tickets to their events. They're not making money on the gate. If you see their financials, that's a fact. And they don't sell pay-per-views. They have 47 quadrillion viewers around the universe that they talk about every time they do a show. Um, so they're not trying to make money in that regard. And the UFC wants to go somewhere where they can sell a gate. Singapore and China are probably, and Korea are probably the only places they can do that. That they
Mm.
can actually get a decent gate on an event to make the financials work. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think the UFC cares if they're not doing shows in Thailand, Cambodia, Manila, and Vietnam, because those aren't markets that are going to give them the gate they want.
2020 is gonna be the rebirth of MMA in Asia.
Busters.
I think so because you have all this stuff going on. We didn't talk about this 2 years ago. We didn't
No.
talk about this 3 years ago. We didn't talk about one versus the UFC in China. We didn't talk about Ryzen and Bellator collaborating to have more shows in
Mm.
in Asia or even in Japan. I think it's like the rebirth. Like how Japan, like Ryzen brought the rebirth of Japanese MMA. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Even though a lot of people argue about that, like, oh, they were always around. Yes, they were, but I'm saying Ryzen just put a
Much
whole.
and Shudo before Risen came around, you know?
Exactly. So, those are the purists, like they're like the hipsters of MMA. There's a lot of hipsters of MMA, right? A lot of
Yeah.
guys out there like, "Oh, I know about I know about what is it? What CFFC, you don't know about CFFC, I know about JMMA and all this. Like, all right, man, whatever. You know about it. Okay. It's all good.
Actually, real quick before we jump onto the rest of Korean MMA, I forgot to mention during the 1 century piece that they actually came out with a press release saying 85 million people worldwide watch Century, and that obviously that is a ridiculous number. It's just stupid. But then on top of it, we had some of the local Asian MMA sites reporting that as news, just kind of copy and pasting the press release into their news section. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues that we see internally in MMA media is that there's a very low threshold for fact checking and publication, especially on that smaller scale. And I'm not going to call anyone out on it, but there's a lot of sites that basically just take press releases and change the title and throw it up on their page as news. And that
That's
85.
not just Asian MMA though. That's like the whole world.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that happens in, but in Asian MMA, one is pretty dominant in that regard, where people will take their press releases and just throw it up. And I thought the 85 million viewers was kind of one of the unsubstantiated in any way. Was one of the more interesting ones.
Yeah, man.
Anyway,
Those numbers must come from somewhere.
it's from someone's imagination. Moving on back to Korean MMA, we talk about Battlefield and Battlefield FC, the big shit show that was Battlefield FC 2, and people not getting paid. And you've got the inside scoop on this. So I want to kind of let you just talk about it and kind of fill us in with the facts because you've done the hard reporting on this.
Okay, so no, I'm not doing no hard report. Hey, I'm not a hard reporter. I'm not a what do you call it? Investigative journalist and nothing like that stuff. I'm just relating to you information that I heard from sources, right? So
Dude,
first thing is
dude.
you got a second show, right? You get a second show. The first show was a shit show, like you brought in all the big names and which was good, but it didn't draw anything because nobody knew them locally. Uh and you pay them a substantial amount, or you contracted to pay them a substantial amount, and then when the show was over, you didn't pay anybody. And then a year later, everybody was paid.
Mm,
So the promoter, he went, and from what I heard is he sold everything. He sold his gym, he sold his house, he sold his car, so he could pay everybody off. This is what I heard. This is what the guy said, the promoter said from his mouth. So he wants to come back. He thought he what did you his reputation,
He did.
was brought back. Yeah, yeah. So he was doing another show. Now this time it was like with some other investors, and Bitcoin was involved, or some kind of currency.
Involved.
Yeah, some kind of internet currency was involved. Gambling was involved. That's why it was in Macau. That's why they did it in Macau, because you cannot gamble. Gambling is illegal in Korea. Online gambling, any kind of gambling is illegal, except for government gambling, which is lotto,
Yeah.
lotto and all that stuff. It's just like some bullshit. It's complete bullshit. But anyways, that's why they went to do it in Macau. Okay, so they get the show. They get Tommy back. Tommy Yang, he is a former fighter, a guy that has lots of connections throughout the industry, and he knows a lot of fighters. So he gets all the fighters, matches them up, and puts the fight card together. Right. So the show happens. Uh, the 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 fights are done. The night the night where they were supposed to get paid, from what I remember, is that they were told to go wait in their room, and then the guy, the promoter, will come in and pay them in their room. So the guys go in there, wait, never happens.
Mm.
They wake up. They're hearing that the promoters left. Someone saw the promoters leave, take off, and I guess this was true, right? Um, so everybody's looking for Tommy, just like the first show. Everybody was looking for Tommy, like, Tommy, what's going on, man? Like, and Tommy had probably no answers, right? He was told the same thing. Um, so everybody gets flown, everybody flies out, nobody gets paid, right? Uh, then I talked to a few guys. From what I remember is the Korean guys, all the Korean fighters were paid, all
Okay.
of them, right? Eventually, like maybe a couple days later, they were transferred their money, all the Korean fighters. Last time, the first show, the Korean fighters were the last to get paid, which was kind of weird, right? But I look at it as like this: they were probably paying the guys that were paid the least first,
Mm.
because they had the money to pay them. Anyways, so I messaged some of the guys, right? So from the guys that got paid, Raja Shipping got paid, right?
Okay.
Bruno Miranda got paid. Some of the Brazilian fighters got paid. One guy got paid half his money, which is
Mm.
weird, right? Like, how do you get paid half your money? Anyways, um, people that haven't gotten paid, all the top guys, Caraway, uh, Will Brooks, um,
Those were the two
what is
top
it?
top
T-Bow,
of the card,
yeah,
right? Card.
and T-Bow was like, I remember messaging directly with T-Bow, and he was telling me like, man, like, I haven't got paid, man. I didn't. He told me he didn't even know that the first event that they didn't even pay the fighters,
Wow.
which was kind of weird, right? I was just like shocked that he didn't know that, right, before signing the contract.
Even
Um,
before the event happened, there was red flags because the officials team from Australia refused to fly in because of
because of
non-payment.
pay,
Yeah.
exactly, right. That was weird too. So they had like a ragtag misfits of referees going there, flown in from Korea
Which
to
showed.
officiate, and there was and then there was that funny submission in the main event, and yeah, and kind of screwed Will Brooks.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Man.
so like to this day, the same people that were paid, and
Yeah.
the people that haven't been paid, like Will Brooks, from what I remember, T-Bow, Brian Caraway, and a lot of the other fighters in the undercard, the European fighters, especially the guys from Europe. I can't remember their names, off the top of my head, but I know that they still haven't gotten paid. And I heard that they have contact with the promoter,
Mm.
but does that really even mean anything? Like, if you have like text
It it
contact with the
yeah.
promoter,
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't mean shit. So, um, and all the and I'm hearing rumors that he's trying to have a third show. So I
Just
don't know, like, yeah, it
just
doesn't. I don't understand like what the mindset of someone like that is. Just like a full blast, con artist. Like, dude is just a con artist. Like, what are you doing? Like, you like these guys. I'm just thinking like he doesn't care about anything. He's just like, oh, I didn't pay them, but I'm not gonna pay them. Or maybe in his mind he's like, I'm gonna pay them eventually, and I'm gonna have a third show. So please come out, and I'm gonna sign you again. It's weird, man. But Yeah, man. Still, I think 70 or 60% of the fighters have gotten paid to this day.
That's just nuts. Anyway, let's move on from. I got nothing
Depressing.
to say about that. Then it's just scummy and crazy. But uh, let's move on real quick. One of our last topics I want to touch on is Letway had a real breakout year this year, as far as a
Yeah.
combat sport goes. It got a lot of international attention. International fighters, a lot of people making noise in this space, and Letway is definitely one of the more interesting combat sports out there. Bare knuckle, or not bare knuckle, but they wear just rope wraps and they allow headbutts, and you get 2-minute recovery time from a KO.
Mhm.
So very interesting sport. Definitely not commission friendly for the West, but fun to watch. What have you thought about the sort of developing story around Letway?
It's phenomenal, man. Like, and you got to give all credit to Dave Leduc.
Yeah,
That man put that
put that
sport,
sport on.
that martial art
Yeah,
on his back. And he is, if anybody was going to promote a sport, a new sport, it's not even a new sport, but it was going to give the resurgence or the rebirth or the international attention to a sport, there's no one better than Dave Leduc. And he's just,
face of it.
he is a workaholic. He is a madman, and he is out there everywhere, and he's
Yeah,
doing it right. He's drawing attention, and everything's strategic with him. It's not like he's just doing things on the fly, and he can fight. And
yeah.
Lethway is perfect for his
Champion.
body type. I talk to fighters all the time, and they're saying like Dave Leduc has the perfect body type for Lethway. The way that you need to fight to win and to get certain angles and distance and stuff like that is perfect. That's why Will Chope is perfect for Lethway too,
Yeah,
because
he's
they're
gonna.
kind of very similar in body types. And yeah, man, I love it. I love it. I love that guys are calling out Dave Leduc now. I love that. He needs guys to challenge for his title, and you got guys calling late Dave out. Why not? Have who called him out?
Oh,
The New
Phil.
York Badass.
Oh, Phil Baroni.
Yeah, Phil Baroni called him out, and he's just, I like to see that, don't you?
Phil Baroni, man. I'll watch him scrap with anyone.
Exactly. So why not? Let's see. I hope they make that fight next year.
Please do. Please do. I don't care what discipline they fight in. It could be Russian slap championship. I'll watch Phil Baroni do
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
Anything. Anyway, I wanted to touch on Letway just 'cause I thought it was such a breakout thing in Asia, in worldwide this year, and it comes from Myanmar, and great sport to check out. And hopefully that blends more into MMA over the next year or two. So as we start to wrap things up here, I want to go through our best of the year. So let's start out with fighter of the year, John. Best fighter coming out of Asia this year. Doesn't have to be an Asian person, but best fighter coming out of Asia.
Man, it's there's two fighters that come to mind,
Yeah,
and it's hard to choose. It's Kyoji Horiguchi
yeah.
or Christian Lee.
Christian
It's
Lee. Yeah,
hard to choose,
yeah,
between them because Kyoji had two belts
yeah.
from two different promotions simultaneously. Like, who does that? Yeah, I
That's
don't. Who does that?
and I mean that's an awesome achievement, and of course he's definitely on my list. He's top three. For me, it's three guys. It's him, Christian Lee. Also, I mean you can't deny Christian Lee's year as a
Mhm.
fighter, and then Javier Truel, who's just had a great year. That's my
Is
boy.
there a little bit of favoritism in that one? I don't know.
100% favoritism, but he's one of the most
Mhm.
exciting fighters to watch in Asian MMA. Had a great year, took home the championship from FMD, and he's about to fight bare knuckle boxing in England. So I mean, that if you love the sport of Asian MMA, Javi comes out of Team Quest Thailand. He's just a gritty dude, but he's on my top three list. But for me, number one, hands down, Christian Lee had the best year for a
Mhm.
fighter, hands down, coming back on 10 days, winning the Grand Prix after taking the championship from a legend like Shinya Aoki, like a legit legend who was on a tear, just destroying people. You can't say that he's not, to me, the Asian fighter of the year or Asian
Well,
MMA.
I could agree with you on that. The point that I want to make about Christian Lee, why he would kind of get the edge, is that Christian Lee went into all of his fights as the underdog and won those fights. Kyoji was already established as the best, one of the
Yeah.
best bantamweights in the world, and he
Yeah.
went in there and won these fights, right? So, and he lost this year, which means that Christian Lee
Neck-
did Christian Lee lose this year?
Did he lose this year?
I
I
don't
don't know.
think so.
I think so.
His last time he lost was to Martin, so I think that was last year. But anyways, I could agree with you on that. I feel like those two guys are like neck and neck, but the thing that stands out is Christian Lee went in there as the underdog and won both fights, and he didn't lose.
Yeah.
And yeah, Christian Lee, props to Christian Lee. That kid is a monster, and he's a kid still, which is nuts, man. Like he's not even like he's only like he probably can't even drink yet in in the U.S.
In Asia though. No
Yeah,
way.
in Asia you could drink anywhere.
But yeah, props to Christian Lee, man. Great year as a fighter. Next up, I want to talk about event of the year, best event of the year in Asia.
Man, there's so many events. There's
Yeah,
so many events. Like I don't even remember the events. Like I watch so much fighting that I don't even like events are like mixed together. I don't even remember like which is which. But um, I don't know. That Century event was pretty legit. Either it was one of the Century, either it was the Century event, or um the Ryzen. Man, which
16,
Ryzen was that? Maybe it
Rising
was
6.
Ryzen 16 because I think a lot of people talk about that event, Ryzen 16. It's neck and neck between those, but I kind of yeah, I like either one of those. Either
For
one of
me,
those, Ryzen 16.
Rising 16, just because I was every fight. It was a smaller card. Every fight on that card was amazing.
Mhm,
In Century, I mean, Century was unprecedented. Two cards in one day. It was just overwhelming to me. It was just
mhm.
overwhelming as far as like the amount. However, though, I mean, Century has a bit of an edge with those Shuto Pancrase fights.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah,
my god, that was like JMMA porn, right?
yeah,
Pancrase champion versus Shuto champion.
yeah.
And, I'm gonna call it a tie. But I got to give it to Century. I got to give it to Century as being the event of the year for Asia.
Yeah, one thing that sticks about that Century card is the main event. I believe it was the main event between Ong La and Brandon Vera. I
Yeah,
thought that fight was just insane.
that's a
You
great fight.
know, yeah, it was just
And
the
actually,
the the
the
exchanges.
the Lee's
Yeah.
Young fight, one of my contenders for fight of the year.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's like, come on. Like,
Yeah,
I like the Brendan Vera fight better because it was just the exchanges were just insane because those guys are throwing with so much power.
to,
And
to, to end the world.
yeah, yeah, it's just
Zero
I don't
fucking
know, man.
safety.
Yeah, yeah, man. It was a fun fight, man. That was definitely great.
Yeah, one century event, Asian MMA event of the year,
Mhm,
unanimous by far. The Shuto Pancrase matchups, the Xiang fight, the Xiang Lee
mhm.
fight, the Vera Ong La fight. I mean, you just Christian Lee winning the tournament and Ragdoll and Doggy. Yeah, hands down.
How
That
can anybody say you're anti one championship when both of your picks were like one championship? Like your fighter of the year is a one championship fighter, your event of the year is a one championship event. I don't think they could say that you're fully anti, right?
I love one's product. I mean, like I
Mhm,
said, they have some great fighters, but at the same time, it's the shit they do like on a transparency level is not cool, and
mhm. All right.
I'm willing to call them out on that.
All right. Well,
Let's
what's
talk.
the next category?
Let's talk. I don't have it listed on the sheet, but let's talk about fight of the year. What was your favorite fight for Asian MMA this year?
Oh man, it's got to be Angela Lee
Angela
versus yeah, yeah, it's got to be that or
or
um
Stan Geet versus E Honda.
yeah, 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 that's the fight. That's the fight right
Full
there.
Metal
That's
Dojo,
just
Stan
yeah.
Geet versus E Honda.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That and I don't know. I'm gonna pick something else. I think I like the Brandon Vera versus Ong
um,
La. I think that was the fight of the year. That even though it wasn't as long, but the exchanges and the power those guys were throwing at is just they just said, "Hey, fuck it."
health and safety.
Yeah, they're like, "Fuck it," and then they just went in there and just threw hammers at each other, and, um, and just control chaos, man, I loved it. I think that's the fight of the year for me in Asian MMA.
Probably, it's a good one. Like I said, for me, I'm probably gonna go with Stan Geet versus E Honda in Full Metal Dojo. I thought that
Mhm.
was an amazing fight. 2 heavyweights and not what you would expect, and absolutely outstanding. But then, yeah, Angela Lee's Young is those 2 fights, they both
Mhm.
happened this year or was one last year?
I think they both happened this year.
Yeah,
I'm pretty
2
sure.
fantastic fights, and
Yeah.
the fact that they shared the outcome, they split the difference on it 1 and 1 is it makes it very interesting story-wise. So
Yeah.
2 fantastic fights and both great performances by each athlete. Like, neither one of those was, like, crazy dominant, they were just both
Mhm.
fantastic. Then best gym of the year in Asia, and I think I talked about Tiger at the beginning. I can't really give this to anyone but Tiger in my opinion for an Asian.
Yeah, come on, man. I'm gonna make a little T-shirt for George. It's gonna
Oh,
say,
yeah.
"Best
Asian
gym of the year,
gym of the
not
year,
coach."
not coach. The coach gets political, and if we name a coach,
Yeah,
then, "Yo, what the fuck?"
exactly, so,
Gym, it's easy, and like you said, it's not a one person thing there, it's a team, and I think that's what
yeah.
makes it different than everyone else.
Yeah, definitely, yeah, team of the year, uh, yeah, gym of the year, whatever you wanna call it, it is Tiger Muay Thai, and, I hope, like, other gyms see that and then, like, say, "Okay, we need to do something different because you got other gyms like Bali MMA doing big things too, man. Like,
Yeah,
don't forget about Bali MMA, man. Shout outs to Bali MMA. Lots
yeah,
of great fighters out there.
fighters.
Um,
I'm in. Yeah, lots of great dudes coming out of there for sure. But yeah, with that, I think that's enough best of the years, unless you can think of
what
any other
about breakout star, man? I think you need to have that one. I
breakout
think there's
star.
only one guy, Kyle Sakura, man. He's the breakout star of yeah.
Whaley.
Wei Lee, yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Championship this year, and how many
Yeah.
American fans never heard of her before, and now
True,
she's
true.
on the tip of their tongue.
I'm going with Kyle Sakura, man. He came in this year and kind of came into his own, knocked out Kyoji Horiguchi, which no one ever thought would ever happen, and
How
then
shocking was that?
broke. Yeah, that was shocking as shit. Like, and he broke Sasaki's jaw in the
Yeah,
next fight. Dude is just in destruction mode right now, and that's why that fight coming up in a couple days versus Manel Cape, the rematch, is just insane. Because I know Manel, he lost the first fight, but it was such a close fight, and he's a destroyer. He's like Wesley Snipes in the Demolition Man. Like, dude is just insane. I
it's
love
gonna
him.
be fight. I'm excited for that. But I can't think of anyone more breakout than Wei Lee, just from a global exposure perspective for me.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can't argue with
I
your
can't argue that. Yeah.
can't
So
argue with
hey,
your pick, 'cause that's a hell
yeah,
of a
it's fun. It's
um,
fun.
and I guess last thing, let's talk about what we kinda want in 2020 and what we hope to see, things to keep an eye on. And for me, I think we might see bare knuckle boxing in Asia 2020.
I hope so. Why not?
Yeah,
We have Lethway.
yeah.
Why not have and Thailand would be the best place to
Um, Muay Thai
spark it
fight.
off?
They already do bare knuckle Muay Thai,
Yeah.
so why not? Why not
Why
make
don't
it a
they just do it in Phuket? Put it in you remember they used to do those fights in the sand?
yeah,
The
what
sand pit?
they used to call those, what, barbecue beatdowns or whatever?
No, no, that's the Tiger, like, that's the Tiger, shows, but they
Those are
have I think they're bringing back, uh, the pit fights in
nice.
Phuket in the next couple months or something like that from what I heard.
Might
So,
have
you're gonna see some MMA
yeah.
in the pit. But bring bare knuckle boxing there, let these guys go at it.
And I'd love to see more transparency from One Championship in 2020. Like I
Mhm.
said, I think their product is great. They have some great fighters. I'd love to see a little bit more transparency from them. They keep talking
I
about they got
think you'll see it.
I hope that they're moving in that direction. And again, a third party commission would make a huge difference for them. They talk about they want to go to the US. There's no way they do a a US based show in a state with a commission with the officials they have and the policies they have. It's not going to happen.
Well, I guess because of that, we're gonna
Yeah.
see more transparency, right? Because they need to go over there and deal and yeah, deal with these commissions over there, and why not? Hey, it whatever they do over there, it's just gonna help what they're doing in Asia because
Or
they're
they're
gonna
gonna
learn from that.
great Indian casino in a tent doing a show with no regulation.
Oh, that wouldn't be good. But I'm pretty sure there's a lot of casinos out there, in
Yeah.
North America.
They
Bellator does a lot of casinos, so
do a lot of
we'll see
shady
what
gambling.
happens. I don't. Hey, as long as you can get the show in there and get the fighters paid. I don't know. I don't. Indian casinos, man, is just you never know what you're gonna get with these places. So, we'll see what they're working on. I'm pretty sure they've been working on it all last year, all 2019. They've probably been in the U.S. going
But Laura
around.
back to the US for that very reason.
Yeah,
Laura
yeah.
Mack
So
be a PR
I'm.
for championship.
I heard that they're gonna have a show in at Madison Square Garden. That's what I heard. They're targeting.
That New York commission, man, they might let that shit fly.
I don't know, but the thing is, like, if they do, that's huge for the
Yeah,
promotion.
for
Because
sure.
they do have DJ, they do have Eddie Alvarez. Look at the potential card. You got Eddie Alvarez versus Christian Lee for the lightweight title. You
Yeah,
got DJ versus Adriano Moraes, both US based fighters for
yep,
in the Coleman event for the flyweight title. Then you could
mm,
put Vitor on there at the third spot. You know, you could put Brandon Vera on there.
yep.
There's like all those fighters are based in the
Be like
US and they already have big followings. Why
yeah,
not?
rumors of December 2020 for one championship in New York. I know that's their target, but I've been unable to confirm any of that.
Yeah.
Another
Well, we're
thing
just spitballing.
what's that?
So we're just spitballing ideas.
Another thing I'd love to see next year, sticking with one championship, is more Pancrase Shuto crossovers. Oh my god, that's I'd love that.
Yeah, I would love that, and I would love for them to go to other countries
Yeah,
and bring in other promotions too, and bring in their champions to face, let's say, a Pancrase champion versus, let's say they work with some promotion in Korea, like Double G, and they have a Double G champion. Let them fight each other on the undercard of one of the shows. I love that idea. Why not? Why not do that?
it's like porn. I'd love to
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
How about you? Anything else you want to see in 2020?
That's it, man. I just want Asian MMA to expand. I want one championship to expand. I want Rise and Bellator to expand in Asia. I want the UFC to expand in China. You know why? Is because that gives me more work. That gives me more to cover. That gives me more opportunity. You know what I mean? And I'm just not being selfish because it gives opportunity to everybody. It gives opportunity to a lot of the fighters that don't have a place to fight. And if Bellator comes and does more shows, that means they're gonna give opportunities to guys that didn't have opportunities uh in the past few years. It's always good. Expansion, always good for everybody in the industry
Yeah,
altogether.
say that. I definitely want to see China blow up in 2020.
Yeah,
Chinese
and
want to see it front and center in
yeah,
2020. Believe me.
it's gonna be the Cold War
Yeah.
all over again.
All right. With that, I think we're coming to the end of the show here, John. I want to thank you for
Yeah.
taking the time to come on with me and talk shop about 2019. I really appreciate it. All the way
No
from
worries, man. Always good. Always good.
for everyone who tuned in, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This will be up probably tomorrow on the on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching, be sure to subscribe to the Asian MMA podcast on YouTube as well as Kumite TV. All the links will be in the show notes. You can see the links to Kumite TV on YouTube and Twitter. Same with Asian MMA podcast. Keep following both of us. Hopefully, we'll be doing a lot more collabs as well in 2020, John. I really
No
enjoy it.
doubt, man. Yeah,
All right,
man,
guys,
for sure.
thank you so much, and I appreciate your time. We will see you next time.